One of the most important relationships India has in the neighborhood is with Sri Lanka. To talk more about it, the roadmap and what lies ahead in terms of the India-Sri Lanka relationship, I have with me Leader of Opposition in Sri Lanka, Mr. Sajith Premadasa, who's here in India to talk more about this. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.
Very happy to be with you.
Sir, my first question to you is that, you've been here on a very important visit to India. You've met key stakeholders. The primary visit objective, if one were to put it out, what would that be? Those 1, 2, 3 key areas in terms of priorities that you would look at for this India visit?
If I am to put it in a very succinct manner, the objective of this visit is to strengthen the bilateral relationship, ensure that our relationship progresses and results in prosperity for both our countries and for our people. In that context, we hope to promote productive, constructive, authentic cooperation that accrues benefits to both our countries and to both our peoples.
Speaking of cooperation, speaking of engagement, I think that is something that India has really stepped up in the last couple of years. We spoke about it as well in the past, that India has been a very important enabler as far as Sri Lankan economy, Sri Lankan society is concerned. What do you think should be the next areas that you would want India to probably focus more on in terms of building and strengthening this relationship?
India has a very crucial role to play in Sri Lanka's recovery process. We have undergone triple tragedies in recent times: the Easter Sunday terrorist attack, the Corona COVID health disaster, and economic bankruptcy. These 3 events resulted in Sri Lanka's people going through immense suffering and distress. We are extremely grateful to His Excellency Shri Modi, the Government of India and the people of India, who have supported Sri Lanka, being the single largest supporter, to the tune of $4.2 billion US. We are extremely grateful. We much appreciate the support given. But Sri Lanka needs cooperation in investment, business promotion, more development to ensure that we come out of this situation of economic distress. Economic distress that has resulted in approximately 40 to 50% of our society suffering from a variety of poverties: income poverty, consumption poverty, investment poverty, savings poverty, and so on and so forth. So Sri Lanka is determined to overcome all obstacles and challenges, but it would be most helpful if the Indo-Sri Lanka relationship results in better cooperation, so that Sri Lanka is able to fast track its growth program. Because 2028 is the decision day, the so-called decision year. That's because we have to commence fulfilling our foreign debt obligations to the tune of $4 to $4.5 billion US on an annual basis.
So $4 billion annually has to be paid out by Sri Lanka in the next 3 years, after 3 years.
To our bilaterals and to our ISBs and to those whom we owe. So foreign debt payments in its largest form commences in 2028. We have already started repaying parts of interest. As we speak, as of now, we repay some parts of our debt obligations, but the major chunk comes in 2028. So if we are to go according to the roadmap
Yes.
and fulfill those debt obligations, we need to have a fast rate of economic growth, at least 5% per annum. We need to have substantial foreign exchange reserves. We need to improve on our remittances. We need to have better export-led development and export-led income.
Yes.
And most important of all, where I believe that India can play an extremely crucial role, is Sri Lanka needs mass-scale foreign direct investment.
India can be an important investor there.
India's capital surpluses, both in the public and private sectors, may be used for investment purposes. We could commence joint ventures. We could work together. We could establish institutions that will promote Sri Lanka's economic growth and fast-track economic growth, so that we are able to fulfill our obligations in 2028. And fast-rate growth, equitable growth, shared prosperity should be our norm. And it is our norm.
That's a lot of areas that you've pointed out, primarily from a business and investment point of view. As someone who understands both the economic and political landscape, let me first ask you, how do you think the last 1 year has been of the presidency of Mr. Dissanayake? Because that also has been a very important inflection point, so to say, as far as Sri Lanka's political and economic journey is concerned. How do you rate that? And that also then tells us the specific areas that you think India and Sri Lanka can work more closely on going forward.
So my principle has always been, whoever is in government in Sri Lanka, always when we are overseas, we don't talk about the major domestic issues. However, I can say quite precisely that there's been a vast disparity in declaration and action, promises and fulfillment of promises. So all the people in our country were expecting a new DSA with the IMF and with other foreign debtors, foreign creditors, I mean. Countries, the bilateral creditors, the ISBs and the multilaterals, we should have gone for a new DSA, debt, it's called debt sustainability analysis, a new debt sustainability analysis, which was promised. And that's not the case. We are going ahead with the same conditions, same conditionalities, the same precepts. And these were creating a lot of distress, hardship, pressure on the people of our country. So that has not taken place. And there are a whole range of issues emanating from that. Electricity prices, consumer prices, a variety of price formulas that have been formulated in a manner that is detrimental to the common man and woman in the streets. So in that aspect, we must change, we have to change. We cannot go on with these types of hardship imposed on the silent majority of Sri Lanka, the common man and woman. I'll give you a good example. When it came to domestic debt restructuring, the EPF and ETF, the trust fund and provident fund contributions, the pension funds of the workers were restructured. However, the primary bond dealers who represent the super rich in society, they were untouched. The banking sector was untouched. Now, if we are to take a hit in restructuring, whole of society has to bear the burden. If anything, the super rich in our society has to bear a greater burden rather than the common man and woman on the streets of our country. So this is where we differ in terms of how we move forward. I think the poverty levels, very high and extreme poverty levels that exist, they themselves act as a hindrance to economic growth. Poverty, be it savings poverty, consumption poverty, production poverty, investment poverty, in all its facets, it's a misallocation of resources. So anyone who has an iota of knowledge of economics would know that when you have a misallocation of resources, when your resources are not properly utilized, you are not on the production possibility curve. You are not realizing your fullest potential. That potential has to be achieved if we are to face up to the challenges that we face in terms of paying off our
debts. That's a very important point you make, sir, which brings me to ask, as far as the India-Sri Lanka relationship is concerned, last month the Prime Minister was also here, and you are here now talking to key stakeholders. Essentially, the idea is that New Delhi and Colombo can work to probably not just ensure that Sri Lanka recovers, but also thrives, moves on, and at a much faster pace. But apart from that, as this happens, one also needs to keep in mind the geopolitical changes that are taking place around us, the growing presence of China in the entire region. And many in New Delhi, many in India have been concerned about that. As the leader of opposition, sir, what would be your thoughts to address the concerns that people in Delhi have regarding China's presence?
Well, India need not have any doubts about Sri Lanka. We are ready to work very close with your country. In fact, I would go on to say that Sri Lanka has a special relationship with India, something akin to the Reagan and the Thatcher years in the UK-US relationship. So, Indo-Sri Lanka relationship is very important. It's a special relationship. It has a great history, our cultural past, and so many relationships have been established that our futures are inextricably linked. Sri Lanka can gain a lot through trade, access to the Indian market of over 1.4 billion. We should not hesitate to build upon the free trade agreement that we already have.
Yes.
However, we should negotiate those free trade agreements so that the benefits are accrued by both countries. That you have competitive and comparative advantages to both countries. So, when you talk of benefit, it should be mutual benefit. But as we have a special relationship and a common understanding, we can have a common approach and a framework to work together to build upon it. So, I think the most important aspect is geopolitics by definition in modern days. It's changing. Geopolitics must achieve a positive result for humankind. And that result is not conflict, is not war, is not attrition, it is peace. Peace is a basic element in promoting prosperity and growth. So we would like, as a country, to act as a middle person in building peace, in ensuring that suspicions that have existed between all of these great powers are mitigated and resolved through discussion. I understand that certain misunderstandings, certain issues that have created mutual suspicion are in the process of becoming resolved. So that's a very good sign, because we are moving towards peace. So Sri Lanka, as a champion peace builder, a peacemaker, would like to get involved in the peacemaking process to ensure that peace and security is assured. But having said that, the Indo-Sri Lanka relationship is certainly a very special relationship, and that special relationship has to be enhanced, supported, protected, and also developed.
You've made some very important points, sir. One being that Sri Lanka can act as building peace when it comes to great powers. Here we are talking about India, China. And as we talk about long-term strategic aspects, one issue I want to sort of bring up also is, which is the immediate aspect, and also a very lingering sort of an issue which continues to fester between India and Sri Lanka, which is the fishermen issue. Even as we speak today, this is the second such instance of fishermen being arrested in the last 1 month. How do you think this can actually be resolved? Because you're talking about poor people, poor fishing communities, sort of caught in the middle of larger discussions.
The mechanisms that exist to provide a sustainable, permanent solution to this particular problem are presently very weak. So we need to have a more concise and precise framework to address this dispute. And this framework has to be predicated upon international conventions, customs, laws, especially law of the sea, laws related to territorial waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zone. So the first thing we have to do is establish a proper framework rather than providing.
There, sir.
No, I don't think so. I don't think the structures that exist or the frameworks that exist are adequate enough to address this issue. I think there has to be common understanding, first and foremost, a consensus as to what the framework is. And the framework has to be built on international law, because these are laws, conventions and customs that are agreed upon by many nation states in the global community. So once these institutional structures and frameworks are established, we need to disseminate it to the various stakeholders, demarcate the boundaries beyond which it is inoperable. And we also have to ensure that fishing as an industry, you cannot condone unregulated, illegal, unreported fishing. Now that's an internationally accepted norm. We cannot move away from those norms. Okay. So the solution that I would propose is to start anew, establish a proper, cohesive and precise framework to address the problem.
Okay, hopefully that will be soon, because this is like a lingering issue that keeps coming up at all levels. I'm going to leave it there, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to me, speaking to NDTV, and it's always a pleasure to have you speak to us, sir.
Thank you so much.